Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Tuesday the 12th of August 2014. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller. Tauranga businesses are already showing their support for Daffodil Day by pre-ordering 1,600 bunches of the bright yellow flower. The Cancer Society is hoping the next show of support will come from the general public when they purchase fresh or fabric daffodils from the street collections on Daffodil Day. Daffodil Day is the Cancer Society's biggest fundraising and awareness campaign. It takes place every August and the campaign ends with a nationwide street appeal on Friday, August the 29th, with all funds raised staying in the local community. When we think of a pin-up calendar, we often think of the golden age of Hollywood, with Bette Davis, Marilyn Monroe and Rita Hayworth featured on the pages. A Hamilton photographer has taken the unique pin-up look and combined it with gorgeous cars from the Classics Museum in Hamilton and produced her second pin-up calendar. Tiffany Curtis from Tiffany Curtis Photography explains what we can expect to see within the pages.
Well, they can see 12 very bright and colourful images of pin-up models with classic cars from Classics Museum.
The Bay of Plenty Regional Council has received over 150 submissions from the public on the application made by the Astrolabe Community Trust to leave the remains of the MV Rena wreck in place on the Astrolabe Reef. Submissions closed at 5 p.m. on Friday, and the council said it would make all submissions public once each of them had been checked. The council also released its own submission in which it focused on seeking stringent consent conditions should the consent be eventually granted by the consenting authority. In sport, and Taniwharo are back-to-back Waikato Premier Club champions after winning an exciting Rugby League Grand Final against the Otumotai Eels on Saturday at Davies Park in Huntly. Both sides scored 3 converted tries, with a single penalty goal proving the difference at full time. Taniwharo hold on to the AS Muir Memorial Shield for another year, with Malcolm Nora named Man of the Match and awarded the Tawera Nico Trophy. Hamilton City Council is taking a wait-and-see approach while it decides what to do with its draft local alcohol policy, which was put on hold in May, while other councils worked through appeals to their liquor policies. Hamilton City Council will wait to hear the outcome of appeals that are with the other councils, as the results would be fundamental to Hamilton's draft LAP. Meanwhile, regulations released by the Health Ministry supporting the Psychoactive Substances Act deal mainly with advertising, manufacture and labelling of synthetic highs. The regulations become effective on November the 3rd. However, Hamilton City Council is still seeking clarification as to how the regulations affect the psychoactive substances policy the council adopted earlier this year. Raglan residents have been advised to stay out of the harbour after an overflow from the wastewater treatment plant on Wainui Road on Sunday saw wastewater flow into Raglan Harbour. The Waikato Regional Council has advised local iwi, residents and the general public that swimming, fishing and collecting of shellfish should be avoided until further notice. Taking a look at the marine forecast now. Raglan expect a sou'west of 25 knots with a very rough sea. High tide 11:56 tomorrow morning. Bay of Plenty a westerly of 20 knots with a very rough sea. High tide 8:49 tomorrow morning. Still to come on Central News, we find out about a new fitness magazine in the Waikato. And up next, speak with the author of the book His Forbidden Love. Kia ora, welcome back to Central News. A new innovative technology-focused incubator will be established in the Bay of Plenty with help from the government, but WNT Ventures has been the driving force behind the proposal. Hilary found out more.
It was originally made up of WARF 42, which is sort of an ICT incubator based at Ignition in the Priority 1 workspace. TIDA, the Titanium Industry Development Association, which is out at the Polytech campus, and then Newnham Park, which was collectively Locus Plus Group and also Locus Research. So those parties together, and then sort of sitting in behind that, we've got other people, particularly important entrepreneurs and also investment sort of side of it. You've got Steve Saunders from Plus Group, Ian McRae from Page & McRae, Scott Hamilton from Quayside Holdings, and then there's a few sort of others that have been involved in the process as well. Enterprise Angels, also the local angel investment group, through Bill Murphy, is a really strong supporter of the bid. So yeah, you can sort of, what we've tried to do is, I guess, bring as many of the support as we can into the actual program and make sure it's really well integrated into the region.
Essentially, does this mean that a startup business involved with the incubator will receive support from any of the businesses involved with W&T Ventures?
Well, basically, if you can imagine, W&T is a little bit like a fund, an investment fund. So it has a certain amount of money to invest, up to a maximum for each company. So that's been specified by Callan at 600,000 as the level to which they will co-fund at. The incubator itself has the responsibility to both find the technologies, select the ones that we specifically want to incubate, and then fund them. So each of those companies will be funded, be established, and be set up and supported to grow. So yeah, I mean it's more of a, it's probably less of, they will get support from all those involved in the incubator, but the primary thing is obviously that they're going to get funded to get to that next stage.
Aside from funding, what other kind of support will be offered?
I mean, most companies when they start up, the sort of the hygiene factors of legal, accounting, design, advisory, all those sort of things are packaged up and provided to the incubators when they start. Because you can imagine, like for someone who comes in to start a technology to try and get it to the next stage, all of those things, selecting all those providers, interacting with all the different people, takes a lot of time. So by removing that and providing a really flatline level of support to enable them to focus on just the technology, because that's going to be really difficult. I mean, each one of these that you take forward is incredibly difficult to make it successful. So you want them focused on just that task.
What are the typical problems a startup business may face?
Oh, they're pretty wide-ranging. I mean, probably the biggest one is getting commercial acceptance. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there's a lot of other things you can get around. Capital will always be a very strong constraint, because obviously you've got capital. You would take a look at a company like Xero. I mean, it's still basically, it spends more than it earns, but because of the rate of which it's growing, the investors deem that that's okay. Also, the executive team has specified that that's what they're going to do. So yeah, it is. I would say probably capital would be, the requirement for ongoing capital is one of the big ones. But certainly getting in and ensuring that sort of commercial acceptance of your technology, because there's a lot of technologies competing for the same space, and even often different ways of doing the same thing. So you've really got to try and develop the sweet spot for your technology and really sort of home in on that.
Waikato Business Publications is a specialist Hamilton-based publishing company producing a range of business, lifestyle and industry magazines. Their latest venture is called Fitness Journal and is a free monthly publication focusing on health, sport, fitness and wellbeing in the Waikato. I spoke with director Alan Neben recently and asked him why Hamilton needs a fitness journal.
I guess we saw the need for something new in Hamilton. Probably the motivator for us was the fact that the number of gyms in Hamilton had expanded. And we looked to the wider Waikato region and we saw that was replicated in the other towns of the Waikato as well. If we go back 5 years or so, there were probably 5 or 10 gyms in Hamilton. I look now and I don't know how many there are. For us, that was a bit of a motivator to say, hey, people are more active, people want to get involved, people want to be healthier. So Fitness Journal seemed like a natural extension for us. We're a publishing business, we communicate with people, so we thought here's a good opportunity to tell people what they want to know. So that's where Fitness Journals come from.
So what's the main aim of Fitness Journal?
I think the main aim is really to motivate. There's lots of advice, there are specialists, there are experts, there's very much a local focus, a local angle. But motivation is the absolute key, I think, as far as I'm concerned. That ability to get people off the couch and enjoying life more, improving their quality of life really.
Fitness Journal is a free monthly publication. What can we expect to see within the pages?
Oh, there's a great variety of content within Fitness Journal, really exciting for us. We've got everything from sports personalities right through to people who you might not expect to have done amazing things. We have got an absolute wealth of talent in the Waikato region, and we want to be able to tell some of those stories. We also want to talk to experts who can give us advice, can give you and I advice on stuff that we can't get advice on anywhere else. Fitness Journal, we hope, is going to be the place to look.
Why is it important to have local experts?
I think it's very easy to find advice from overseas, particularly with new media. Very easy to get experts out of the States, out of Australia, even from other parts of the country. One of the problems with that, however, is when you really need to get to talk to somebody, see them face to face, a little bit difficult when they're out of LA, or even if they're on the Gold Coast. A good example there, I've taken up running recently, and I wanted to buy myself a good pair of running shoes. Really a little bit difficult to do that online, but it was lovely to be able to find the local retailer who was an expert, who was able to help me, to advise me and to fit me into a good pair of shoes that I must admit, have really helped my running.
To sign up for your free e-copy, go to fitnessjournal.co.nz or follow them on facebook.com/fitnessjournal Waikato. Up next on Central News, we speak with author Nicola Davidson about the release of her book, His Forbidden Love. Welcome back to Central News. Local author Nicola Davidson's book, His Forbidden Love, was released today. Hilary caught up with her in studio.
Sure, it's a historical romance and it's set in Tudor England. Basically, the story outline is that Henry VIII has just executed his fifth queen and now he's looking for his next lucky lady. My heroine Annabelle's parents and her family have decided that she should be the next Queen of England, and they're a very powerful family, and they ask my hero soldier Rafe to escort her to the king. The only rub is that once upon a time Rafe and Annabelle were very much in love.
Ooh, sounds scandalous.
Very scandalous.
Tudor, what does that mean? Or is that a particular period, or, you know, what does it mean when it comes to romance novels?
Well, Tudor is a period in English history. It basically runs from 1485 to 1603, going from Henry VII to Elizabeth I. So it's basically the Tudor family, that's why it's called that particular era. Mine book is based in 1542, so it's kind of near the end of Henry VIII's reign.
What does it mean when it comes to romance novels about, you know, writing? Does it a particular romantic period?
I wouldn't call Tudor a very romantic period. It was a very turbulent time. There was a lot happening in England, especially with, you know, religion, war, you know, people vying for thrones, you know, power struggles. It was a very, you know, bloody time, but it was also a very passionate time, and I think that that's why people who enjoy the era are fascinated by it.
When writing about a certain period in history, do you have to do a lot of research? What's involved in trying to get the facts right and that kind of thing?
It's always been my experience that historical readers are passionate about a world being right. They tend to, you know, be quite detail focused, and, you know, they will pull you up on it if they find something in the book that's wrong. So I'm very particular myself in my research. You know, it's down to the little things like, you know, clothing, mannerisms, lingo, all those kind of things, you know, people really enjoy in a novel, and because it's just a way of bringing the world to life. And, you know, if you can bring people into a world and make them believe that they're there, then I think that you've done your job.
So put extra pressure on you though?
It does, you know, because, you know, even when you're researching, you know, especially with a historical period that's a long, long time ago, you know, there can be conflicting things, you know, and you can find one story that says, no, this is how it was, another one that says this. So sometimes, you know, you've got to research several, you know, different sites or different books to find, you know, the information that you need.
Because you didn't always write about the Tudor period though, did you?
No, I also write in the Regency period, which is England as well, but it's 1810 to 1820, so quite a bit later.
What's the difference when it comes to writing about romance?
Regency was a very romantic time. It was also a turbulent time in terms of war because you had the Peninsular Wars, Napoleon, Waterloo, those kind of things happening. The royal family were in a bit of a thing, with the king being a bit mad and, his heir, the prince, not being the most moral of men. But, Regency is a really, really popular historical era because it was very romantic. Manners times with the balls and the parties, and the aristocracy were quite solid at that time.
When you're writing a book about a particular period of history and that kind of thing, do you ever feel like you lose yourself in the book and you almost, have to step away and go, oh, that's right, I'm in 2014?
Absolutely. It's very easy for the time to pass, when you're researching, when you're writing, because it's just, I find history so fascinating that it's very, very easy to just get absorbed in it. And then to come back and go, oh, you have to cook dinner, or oh, you have to go and go to the supermarket. And it's like, why can't I have some maids or my butler go and attend to that? It's, it's very jarring sometimes coming back, especially, if you've been writing, a scene and they're having a banquet, or, a Regency scene where they're at a ball. And then it's like, oh, I've got to do the vacuuming. It's very jarring sometimes coming back.
It's hard enough reading a book, let alone writing, I can imagine. Now, you weren't able to get the book published straight away though, were you?
It takes a while. Most publishers, for a print book, they're buying 18 months out. And the reason for that is because the actual process from purchasing the book to printing the book is quite involved, and it has, several steps. Even with the editing process, with this book of mine that's just out, there were 3 rounds of edits, and that went for approximately 6 months. And then there's also, when you're working towards the cover, you have to do back cover blurb, come up with a tagline for the front, which is this, the small couple of words on the front just to say, what the book's about. And coming up with a cover takes time. You fill out a cover art sheet. What does your hero look like? What does your heroine look like? What's the theme of the book? Is it funny? Is it romantic? Is it very sexy? Is it dark and suspenseful? All those things are taken into account.
Just quickly, what are you going to do tonight to celebrate the day of your release?
Oh, definitely. I think it might be time to pop some champagne.
Up next, we find out more about the funding for the Bay Fair to Bay Park project. That's next on Central News. Kia ora, welcome back to Central News. An option has been decided for the Bay Fair to Bay Park link at Mount Maunganui. The new road will feature 2 flyovers and the East Coast Main Trunk Railway line will be relocated. Hillary spoke with the Transport Agency to see if the major freight route for the port is taken into consideration when planning and if there will need to be any special requirements.
Absolutely, the port has been a major driver for the project. Like I say, this is a major freight route and stimulating and helping regional and national growth is what this project is about. In terms of special requirements, the flyover structures that we'll be building will be HPMV compliant. What that means is high productivity motor vehicles. So those are those larger, wider, heavier trucks that we're seeing more and more on our roads these days, just to make freight movements more efficient. And so the structures here will be able to take those movements.
Will the port be putting any money towards it then?
Not currently. It will be a nationally funded project, but the business that the port provides is for that, the benefit for the Greater New Zealand, so they are certainly playing their part.
When are you hoping to break ground? When can we expect to drive on that new road?
I'm afraid I won't be able to provide any definitive dates today. It's all subject to funding. I'd like to think construction could start as early as 2016, but like I say, that's subject to funding. In the meantime, there's still a detailed design of the preferred option, planning, designation, approvals, resource consenting and planning, property acquisition. So there's a lot of work to be done in the meantime. Once construction has begun, construction could take around 3 to 4 years to complete. The first thing that we'd have to do is construct the railway line in its new corridor, have that fully operational before we could start construction on the road, just because the state highway through this corridor is so constrained. That could take around 9 to 12 months, and then construction on the state highway could begin. That could take between 2 and 3 years, just because it's such an important route. We need to maintain traffic flow while we're constructing. So in terms of using the new road, it could be as early as 2019, 2020, but as I say, it's all subject to funding.
How much is it going to cost then?
All in all, the expected estimate is 102 million for the detailed design and construction.
And this is from the national government funding for roading?
That's right, that's nationally funded from the government.
You can view a virtual drive-through of the new road layout on nzta.govt.nz/B2B. Time to take a look at the weather now. Firstly for Hamilton, a few showers for Wednesday with the odd hot hailstorm thrown in. Southwesterlies expected and a high of just 12 degrees, 3 your overnight low. Around the region, expect more of the same, showers and hailstorms. Pāroa 13, your high with a low of 4. Matamata 11 with your low is 4 also. Te Awamutu expect a high of 12 with a low of 3. And Tokoroa, all but chilly there for Wednesday, just 9 degrees, your high and a low of 1. Tauranga, morning showers with fine spells, southwesterlies freshening and a high of 13 degrees expected with a low of 5. And taking a look around the bay, Te Puke can expect a high of 11 with a low of 4 overnight. And that's Central News for today, Tuesday the 12th of August 2014. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you join our Facebook page and let us know of news in your community. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller. I'll see you back tomorrow night. Ka kite anō.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.